All right, my name's Dan Dietrich. I lead our data analytics team here at Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital. Spend the next 10-15 minutes just demonstrating how we integrated Power BI into our data solutions here at NVRH. Just to give you some background on who we are, that way it gives you context of will this solution work for your organization. We're a critical care access hospital, relatively small, 25 beds. Our team, our data analytics team, works under the Information Systems Department, which consists of 3 teams: hardware, applications, and our data team. And then our data team is further subdivided into 2 sections. We have the data analyst team, which consists of 2 analysts. We have Heidi and Steph, and then interface engineers, which is Gary and John. What we're going to demonstrate today is our Power BI data solution that we've built over the last 6 months, and primarily the workhorse behind this environment is from Heidi and Steph. Our goal, our mission here, is from the data perspective, is to provide our decision makers another means to make decisions, more information, a different way of looking at a problem before they make a decision. And generally, how we approach problems is we understand the problem, we build the data model, and then we visualize it. And what we've done different in the last 6 months is we've leaned on Power BI as our go-to for our visualization. And I'll show you why. So let's get into the show and tell. So I'm going to do everything that we look at today. This is from a user perspective. So this would be from what the CEO, the CFO, your directors, your managers, anyone that you give access to this environment, this is what they would see, not necessarily the developers and your data analysts. So it is a link. Ian talked about that earlier. You can paste this link on your internal SharePoint, and then the users just click that link and it brings up to this homepage. So I'm going to talk about 3 menu options over here. I'm going to talk about the home, which is just the landing page. On the landing page, when the user first logs in, it just shows what you've recently accessed, which apps you recently accessed. Some users will just go to the same app over and over, so they don't go anywhere else. From the home page, they click the app that they go to. From favorites is another one. I don't have any favorites in here, but if, for example, you want to favorite an app, and I'm going to jump over to apps here. This is the 3rd area we're going to talk about. Say I want to go to apps, and these are our apps that we've built out at NVRH. And we developed this MUSE demo app, and we put a couple dashboards and reports in there. I'm just going to add favorite here. So now when the user goes and logs in, they go straight to favorites, and then that MUSE demo app is there, easily clickable. So that's how favorites works. Really, the meat of this whole environment is right here in the apps. So within apps, our developers control which apps are published, which ones are viewable, who accesses those apps, and it's all managed from our team here. Each app the format is very similar once you click inside, and we built out a MUSE demo app. So we'll go inside the demo app here, and we published out we queued up 3 of our dashboards. We cleaned the PII off of it. So just the format on the layout of the display once you're in here. So over on the left, you'll see we have 3 different projects. We have our high ED utilizer project, which consists of 2 pages. We have patient page and we have the visuals page. Right now we're looking at the patients page. And then we have a DI volume project. And if we were to click on that, there are 3 pages with the DI volume. And then we have a mental health project, which we have 2 pages with the mental health. So we're going to go back up to the ED high utilizer and start from there and just kind of work through each dashboard to show you how it interacts and how we've how we came up with solutions to the problems that we were asked to solve. So this is the ED high utilizer. Our ED leadership came to us and asked us to visualize a way that they can look at who utilizes our ED a lot. So the format, and this is all customizable inside that Power BI desktop that Ian was talking about earlier. That's just the tool that your developers use to build this stuff out. And lots of options, many different ways to visualize data and information. how we typically add our filters here at the top. So it's just a go-to. It's just a standardized way. So every user, when they go to it, they know the filters are at the top. So we have a date filter. So when you select this date filter and you adjust the date, you'll notice the data, it changes. I mean, it's pretty quick. It's very reactive. And then we have an annual visit filter here, and we just click the patients who's visited our ED 7 or more times within the last year, and say we just want to look at the males. So now we're looking at all males who visited the ED 7 or more times within the last year between these two dates, and our age range is, we'll get down to the 50 to 77 year age range. And that's it. That's how this report works. We have a couple KPIs over here that they change as your filters change. And then even the reports down below, these are interactive. So if I look at this patient here, there's a male 51 who's visited our ED 7 times within the last this time range, or within the last year, or no, this time range, and then the last visit, and then days since the last visit. And we have a couple metrics here. If I were to just select that patient, now this display over here changes to display only the information that relates to that patient there. All right, so let's move on to the next page. So the next page is more of a summary, a visualization of the aggregate of all of that information from before, from the patient's page. Same format where we have our filters at the top, a couple KPIs over here, and then we have a couple pie charts and some patient age ranges, some stacked bar charts, and some side-by-side bar charts. Same deal. If you interact with the filters, the visuals change accordingly. And then even if you interact with, say, the pie chart, where you just want to look at patients who had 1 to 3 visits within the last year, everything else will adjust to that pie chart selection. All right, so that's one example, one dashboard we built out using Power BI. So the next example, we're going to go over our diagnostic imaging volume. So the DI director came to us and asked us to visualize a way that she can see over time her volume, her order volume, and all the categories within DI, be able to interact with it and get down to specific time range, specific modalities, specific procedures. So we built out this dashboard for her, and this dashboard's scheduled to update every morning at 6 o'clock, so she gets the latest and greatest information. This one looks at from yesterday and all the way back to 2014. Same deal, where we have all the filters at the top. So if we want to change the date range that the orders were completed, the rest of the dashboard interacts and changes accordingly. If we just want to look at, say, a CAT scan, we can see this is the CAT scan trends over time. Over here on the left, we have a couple summarized data based on the location. So the ER within this date range ordered a little over 9,000 CAT scans. And if we change that date range, those CAT scans will decrease as you decrease the time. We also added a couple, you can look at just the ER. So now you can see the ER's trending of CAT scans over time by month, or you can see it, this is broken down by day. And then this visual at the bottom has a cool little feature where you can adjust just the line graph itself and kind of zoom in on a particular time range without affecting the rest of the report. Next page on the DI volume, different ways to visualize information. So she wanted to know which day of the week were peak times and then where were the low times. So we integrated some of what we call violin distribution graphs, similar to a box and a whisker chart, except just adds this distribution shape on the end. So you can see here, Sunday's kind of low. If you hover over it, you'll get some actual statistics for a Sunday. So we have 405 samples, which means there's 405 days that it's looking at. It has the maximum, the minimum, the average, the mean, standard deviation, typical descriptive statistics. And then over on the right, we added the average for the day, just if you're more of a number visualization. And then we have a range where we actually calculated the one standard deviation from the average to give her a range to kind of understand what could she expect on a Sunday, any given Sunday. And the bottom chart we have here, she wanted to know in a typical day, which hours have the highest volume for orders. So given this date range, there's no filters. You can see for some reason at midnight, there's a bunch of orders, and then it decreases from midnight all the way to 6, and then it jumps up where providers start putting in DI orders. And same thing, if you adjust the filters themselves, so it looks like recently a lot of orders are put in at the beginning of the workday and decrease as the workday goes on. And then the third tab is the actual raw data. So we give a lot of our projects, we publish the raw data. One, it allows the user to feel comfortable and trust that we are capturing the data that they want to see. And it provides a way for them to audit, and we fix and correct maybe mistakes that we've made in the data modeling. One of the features I do want to point out on this is downloadable. So if this spreadsheet, if I kind of hover over here, there's 3 dots, and then there's an export, and then, no, I want to export the data. Oh, there we go. Summarize data. I'm going to put it in an Excel, and I'm just going to export it, and then I'll bring it up here, as long as it doesn't take too long to download. Probably should have, okay, you're just going to have to trust me. This is probably a lot of records here. It downloads in an Excel, it opens up, and it looks just like you would think an Excel spreadsheet would look like, so that she can take that Excel spreadsheet and do her own analysis. Oh, there we go. And then I'm going to open that Excel spreadsheet. All right, so I put it on screen too. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it is the Excel, it's the data that I just downloaded. All right, and then the last dashboard project that we worked on was mental health. We have a mental health population here in our community, and we wanted to understand that mental health population, and so that we can maybe introduce some treatments that would help the patients. So we have 2 pages on the mental health dashboard. The first page looks at, we have the filters at the top. First page looks at just some data by day. How many patients did we have in the facility, in our hospital, and how long on average those patients remained within our hospital, and then the total hours. So if you have 2 patients, average of almost 10 hours, looks like both of them stayed here almost 10 hours each. And then you have some actual more detailed information for that patient. So this patient, for example, visited our ER, and we had a category, either an adult or a minor. There was a request from our customer who requested this dashboard. The patient age, and if you hover over the actual bar graph, you'll see where that patient was either admitted or visited well, in this case, visited the ED, the start, and then when they left the ED. And then we have a bar chart down here, similar to the DI chart, where you have a feature where you can just kind of scroll in and zoom in on a particular area for that bar chart. And if I were to click one of these bars down here at the bottom, everything else adjusts. And our final page that we want to look at, same thing, mental health, just a different way to visualize information so that decision makers can make those decisions they need to make. We only have 1 filter, it's a date filter. So what this report answers is, how many mental health patients did we have within our facility at any given time in October? So for example, this month, we only have 6 days. So far, almost 12% of October, we've had 0 mental health patients. Almost half of our October, which is 3 days now, 50% of that time, we had 1 patient in our facility. We were treating 1 patient. And then 36% of the time, we had 2 mental health patients. And then 3% of the time, we had 3 at one time at the same time. The graph over here on the right It's the same information that is here on the left. It's just a different way of visualizing that information. You can see a stacked bar chart where back in October of 19, we had 60%. We did 60% of all October. We didn't have any mental health patients. And if we hover over the light turquoise, 23% of the time we had one mental health patient, and then 14%. And then again, the circular pie chart down here in the lower right, it's just a different way of visualizing the information, realizing that not every leader looks at information the same, and that everybody makes decisions based on different inputs. So that's all I have today for demonstration. I'm sure we'll get into the question and answer here.
Thank everyone for coming today. I know we had a lot of information we presented, and also you have contact information by email for Glenn and Dan and myself.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen. Very good presentation. And Dan, you've got some cool stuff there. And first question comes in from Tina. How long does it take to create one of the dashboards that you presented?
Yeah, it's it really depends on the problem that we're trying to solve. What I failed to mention though is, although we have two primary analysts, like we have a huge support team from our hardware team, our applications, and we've leveraged, we've leaned on Acmeware a lot to build this whole environment. It is not just our two data analysts, but a typical project, it depends how really understanding the information, understand the problem takes time. Like, so for example, that high DED utilizer, it was back and forth from, I built that one out. Between building it out and getting it right, I would say a week, but to get the core data modeling probably takes about a day or two, and then another day to do the dashboard itself. To get that right. But it is a lot of back and forth, and is this what you want to see? Is this right? So it is a process, and it is teamwork.
Good. Dan, you can flick your camera back on so we can see you. And I think a follow-up to that is what kind of skill set do you have and your people have? This isn't just, doesn't look like you just pull this off the shelf at Best Buy and install it and you become a data analyst.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. Like, our team is actually very young. Both Heidi and Steph combined have less than 3 years of doing data analytics. We have a very strong, hard-hitting support team when it comes to the hardware applications in the Acmeware, because we are so young at building this stuff out. But we are dedicated. We have a dedicated, intelligent team that solves problems. I mean, that matters.
Good. Another question: do you have issues with data sets not refreshing correctly when they are scheduled, Dan?
Yep, I've had a couple, and I'll get an email right away. As soon as if a data set fails to refresh, it'll send me an email, say it failed to refresh. And I've had it where it's either sometimes the DR could be the issue, something's locking up in the DR, and I've had it where some reason it just timed out. I didn't drill down into why. I've not had an issue where I've spent a lot of time on figuring out why it didn't refresh. The next time I refreshed it, it refreshed. So
good. Glenn, do you have insight into that generically with other customers?
Well, I'll actually step back to the last question a little bit, because I have a comment on that. The effort to build, it really separates into two. The Power BI, there's a lot of educational content on using Power BI available for any strong technical person to go out and learn. The challenge, and this is what Dan was referring to, is that getting the data in a form that can be consumed by Power BI. That's still this iterative process that you're communicating with the head of the department and trying to understand what data to use. So just adding to that comment there. As for the refresh, I mean, we've been using the data refresh through the Power BI gateway, and I've yet to see a failure myself. It does allow you to get an alert. It does. I haven't seen one yet in our development at Acmeware. So.
Good. Dan, have you seen new tools like this have a dramatic effect on the amount of paper produced for reporting? Have you saved the forests of Vermont?
I don't know of any of our customers that we serve, that the people that we work with to build this stuff out, that actually prints it out other than finance. For some reason, our finance team likes to download and then print out spreadsheets and spreadsheets of information and data and write notes on it. Everyone else, they seem to be everyone's pleased with, first of all, everyone. I've not heard any complaints with Power BI at all. I mean, everyone's very impressed with it that we've built and worked with. But to save the forest, possibly. I mean, I don't know what their workflow was prior to using Power BI if they printed out a bunch of stuff.
Those finance people have relatives that are lumberjacks.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
Dan, what's been the impact from your users? You know, there probably was paper years ago, and now this tool's been created. And what's the usage been and the feedback been from those people that are using these dashboards?
Yeah, what it did cause was a bigger understanding of what is possible. Our users can look at this stuff and be like, oh, we can do that. Well, now can you do this for me? So our demand has increased like big time. So yeah, we are in high demand right now.
Good, and I would think so, given the tool and the ability to access the data. There's probably not anything that goes unanswered. Glenn's good example. He mentioned this COVID thing that I'm not familiar with, but that probably was something that you had to put together quickly and produce some good information.
Yeah.
Another question came in. Maybe Ian, I'll give you this one. How does it compare to MEDITECH's BCA? There you go, Ian. You're welcome.
Thesaurus. No. I guess I would say it's similar in that, you know, the reports are dynamic and interactive, right? And it's also similar in the sense that you have to do a lot of work to build the data model the right way. Assuming if you take sort of MEDITECH's pre-built data models for BCA, that's one thing. But I think the real power of BCA potentially is designing and building your own on top of that, right? For custom reports, basically, that's effectively what we're talking about, custom reporting. So similar in functionality. I will just say from what I've seen about Dan's work, particularly at Power BI, it seems much more intuitive, and the report, I would say, responsiveness is just it's fantastic. So
yeah. We do, from MVRH standpoint, we do still use BCA, not as much as Power BI now. Power BI is our go-to when it comes to visualization, but there is a cost. We pay the license of $10 per user. BCA is already paid and bought. So if we have a user that we don't want to buy a license for, we'll build it in BCA and then give them that access. And we also use SSRS depending on what the customer's request is. So
good. Just at the top of the hour here, somebody asked if the slides and the recording will be available, and they will. We post all of these to the MUSE website, museweb.org, and you can find them under our library. We've got webinar archives, and all this information will be there. And I think for any of your questions, the gentlemen have kindly put their email addresses there. So I suspect that means you don't mind getting an email from people if they might have follow-up questions. So I want to thank you all. Glenn, I'll give you a last word on Microsoft Power BI.
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Alan, and Alyssa and Michelle and the MUSE organization for making this happen, because it's a great opportunity to share educational information. Power BI has come a long way in the last few years. The biggest change was the licensing. Dan mentioned it earlier. It's now at a point where it's accessible to smaller organizations, where a few years ago the starting point for using Power BI was much more expensive. And so that change has prompted us, Acmeware and MEDITECH sites like Northeast Vermont, to embrace Power BI, and we expect to see a lot more of it in the future.
Good, thank you. I'll encourage everyone to continue to visit the events page on the MUSE website and watch for our announcements, because we've got many more webinars with this type of great quality coming up in the future. And with that, I'm going to find the off switch. And thank you all. This concludes our webinar.